Hello, glad to see you back. It is I, Lilith, your favorite wonderful wizarding necromancer, the grave-robbing, night-killing sweet succubus. Back again, as they say. At the moment, we're chasing down some chaos cultists so that we can slay them and sell their gear, and maybe resurrect a few of them to fight in our undead army. Speaking of money, though, a courier would arrive with a mercenary contract from the Emperor Karl Franz von Holzwing something, who was actually offering to hire us as a mercenary for Reichland, his empire, his nation. Now, obviously, we were none too fond of being under the thumb of an emperor or his country, but we could use the battle experience, and every one of his enemies that we kill, we could attempt to resurrect and grow our own military much stronger, so we accepted. Now buckle your seatbelt, because we currently have a little bit of a roller coaster, an emotional one. At the moment, they were at war with Middenland, I believe is how you pronounce it, but shortly thereafter, as we were making our way there, they made peace with them. And initially I thought, well, there goes my job, literally right after I had just gotten it done. But it seems that they are still currently at war with the repugnance of the Brass Keep. So it looks like we still have a bit of job security. Now, my parents were grave-digging peasants, so I'm not all that familiar with the politics of these lands, but I do know that this handsome chap here is in for a rude awakening when I find him. The Brass Keep literally only has one city that's called the Brass Keep, so I began making my way up there. Just a little bit to the north, where the only thing colder than the icy winds and snow were the blades of bandits. My travels to the north would also lead me across many a beautiful river into many a beautiful city. Beautiful cities that had plenty of dead corpses that we could raise from the dead and, well, they're still dead, but you know what I mean. And with these corpses, our army would balloon to a whopping 407 soldiers. Surely this is enough for us to attack the Brass Keep, I said to myself. Oh, how wrong I was. 1,868 soldiers were defending the Brass Keep. I think that we may have bitten off a bit more than we can chew, so it's time for us to grow our own army more. However, we were also beginning to face a bit of an issue. Many of the nations, cities, and towns all around these parts were beginning to hear word of a beautiful emo mommy going to their graveyards and digging up their loved ones, and thus we had something of a warrant out for us, it seems. Thankfully, though, Reichland still loved their little mercenary mommy, so we started heading out west. In our travels, we would end up meeting a traveling merchant. Now, at first we thought the old man was a bit strange, but we decided to browse his wares anyhow. What's the worst that could happen? And I was quite glad that we had stopped to try and browse his wares, because we had the perfect cloak for our occupation, some necromancer shoulders. This new caped, spiky, stylish attire not only helps us increase our magical abilities, but no doubt it'll be quite intimidating to anyone we meet on the battlefield. We would also end up buying ourselves a new pair of gauntlets made for a blood knight. Well, we're hardly a knight, but I think that they're still very fitting. As we were continuing our travels, we realized that out west they seem to have many new different types of factions, many of which seem to be some very large cults. Quite literally the perfect enemies for us to slaughter. As we were traveling to the capital city of Altdorf, we spotted many a chaos cultist attacking some of the city's militiamen. We would have to come to their aid, for our mercenary contract, and more importantly, our paycheck from the contract, would depend on it. Don't you worry your pretty little head, handsome, for I have arrived. You're safe now. I must say, these soldiers were acting quite strange. They seem like they've never seen a walking dead corpse reanimated to fight before. Get used to it, boys. We're your buddies now. We had our swords and shields clanking and our bones a-rattling. Our army was ready to viciously tear apart these cultists, who had much less numbers, as you can see. They were some strange-ass looking cats, let me tell you, and that's coming from me, someone who literally commands an army of skeletons with rotting flesh on their bones. Alright boys, let's rock their socks.
Engage!
Look out, you filthy little fools. Mama's got her scythe out, and I came to reap souls and maybe even take a few hearts and heads back home with me. Don't worry, some of you will even come back, just fighting for the right side this time. Obviously, we easily dominated all the cultists. Now then, how about them corpses, eh? We would finally make our way to the capital city where we could trade off many of our prisoners and their gear for some moolah that we would actually end up using to purchase ourselves plenty of horses to pack around everything, and also for many of our undead to ride on. We have such a massive army, but hardly any of them are mounted on horseback, making us incredibly slow, which made our mercenary job of cleaning up the lands and streets around these parts insanely hard because we were trying to chase down such small parties of bandits, deserters, and beastmen. Speaking of which, we would eventually stumble across a large deserter hideout right in the middle of the forest. No doubt they'll pay us a pretty penny to disrupt this operation. Under the cover of shadows and night, where we tend to operate best, we would make our move. Let the silent mayhem commence. As we approached, we found the ruins of what appeared to be some type of old fortress or town, with many a deserter coward hiding inside. Just as quickly as they would come out, we would send them to their grave. Once we had finished off those who were waiting in the tower, we decided to jump up there and take a little look around. From the distance up here, we could see that there were even more cowards. Our skeleton warriors would quickly engulf them, stabbing them and beating them until they were dead, and we would begin sneaking through the marshes towards a couple more. You could think of me as a swampy reaper of sorts. Though, to be honest with you, I notice, of course, that my pole arm seems to work much better atop my mount. Oh well, we'll still give it a shot. Eventually, the captain of this piss-poor operation would come out to confront us after we had cut a swath through his men. He seemed infuriated, but his large nose and mustache seemed to infuriate me even more. Let's kill him. Rip and tear, gentlemen. I punched him in his big old nose, and then his men wanted a piece of me, so I began to stab them and punch them in their big old noses. He once again would attempt to take me on with another of his men, at which point I was basically surrounded and my skeletons were dying. With a last final action, I would raise a group of the undead from the ground as the deserters took me out. Obviously, I personally had been defeated, but we ended up taking out the deserter hideout as my undead finished off the job once I passed out. But a mercenary's job is never done. We would come upon a very large group of beastmen just near the shore. Given our numbers and strength, we would easily end up defeating these poor furry bastards. But there was a good side to it for them. These minotaurs among their ranks, and only the minotaurs, everyone else is being sold to the city, could be recruited into our ranks after enough time. Since we don't technically have an option to resurrect these types of creatures after they die to fight in our army as undead, this is the next best option, and I'm only going to be limiting this to specific types of creatures, like minotaurs. This will help us offset the fact that it's getting a bit harder for us to sneak into towns to raise the dead for our army. At one point, though, we would end up spotting a decent-sized group of cultists by the name of Second Flesh. Well, nevertheless, I'm sure they're wanted by the fine folks out here, and thus we are going to make some money on them. This was the first time that we were encountering this cult, and they were quite a bit different than the cults that we had previously found. They appeared to like disease, I believe, and they were going to spread pox upon our flesh. I don't think so, little fella. Finally, a decent-sized group of organized cultists in the area, though everyone that we've been fighting so far has been a small little militia or warband. This should be fun. Oh, and it looks like their leader is even trying to cosplay as me. I'm so flattered. As we were prepping for the battle, we could see them coming over the hills in the horizon. At first I thought, damn, they are brave for coming to attack us, but then after seeing the size of our army, they stopped in their tracks. Looks like we'll be coming to these cowards. I can't express how tickled I truly am to spill their blood on these hills. In particular, I had my sights set on their little leader and his little scythe. Oh, how cute. Riding up on my mount, I would try to slice him as much as possible, but eventually one of our men got the last blow in. Aw, phooey. Nevertheless, a win is a win, as they say, and a win was ours today. Oh, don't look so down, gentlemen. You will soon have a new leader. Speaking of which, their leader somehow managed to survive his injuries, and initially I thought, of course, about executing him, but I guess I'll take him prisoner. I'm sure the Emperor will be quite tickled to throw him into the dungeon, and it does look like he's going to pay us a handsome sum for him, thankfully, as well as many of his cohorts, of course, but we were sure to keep all the minotaurs for ourselves. We would go out traveling again looking for more beastmen parties, deserters, and so on and so forth, but we eventually would come across the leader of the Brass Keep. Ah, and with such a small army of soldiers, no less, my friend, you have made a big mistake. You should have stayed in your little brass keep, you poor fool. And I don't plan on addressing you as a Chaos Lord. You're going to be a corpse here very shortly. Thankfully, a large army of Reichland's soldiers would also come to our aid. Not that we needed their help, truth be told, we preferred to go in alone, but since they're our employer, whatever. This was sure to be a battle of epic proportions. Standing side by side, our Black Knight skeletons were some of Reichland's finest knights themselves, riding in on griffins. And I thought my army was badass. Good heavens. Many of their soldiers also carried a strange technology which appeared to be something of a firearm. I'm not sure. These poor, non-magical humans always have to invent something to try to keep up. You know how it is. But with our undead standing side by side with some of the finest warriors that this nation has to offer, I doubt that the Chaos Lord will stand even a fraction of a chance. Though it should be said that he was mighty intimidating atop some type of flaming horse. By the gods, we've never seen anything like it, but we will still fight like hell to kill him and his repugnant warriors.
He's not a one, breathing!
And so it begins, gentlemen, what some would consider the battle of their lifetime. Fighting against the Chaos Lord himself is simply a footstep in a much larger journey for us. As you could see, they were holding a pretty tight coordination, so we would have to bring up undead right in between all of their soldiers to help disrupt that a little bit. I attempted to focus on their leader, but he was a bit hard to reach. Occasionally, I would kill some of their soldiers until I eventually chased him down, managing to strike his pony. By the time it was all said and done and the dust had settled, he and his warriors were defeated, and we were covered in gallons of their blood. Hang in there, Chaos Lord. I'm pretty sure the Emperor has a nice cell with your name on it. It would be a shame, though, if we didn't take something for ourselves. I like your gauntlets. And you know what? I think that they would actually look a lot better on me. Oh, and I'm right, as per the usual, of course. Not to worry, though. I'm still keeping our Blood Knight gauntlets to go with our more formal attire. And we would get to make a good bit of money off a bunch of these Nurgle simp freaks. Not as much as I'd like, but their gear is going to really be where the money comes in at. It was a bit difficult and sluggish, but we were making ourselves a bit of a small fortune. Most of this can be owed up to the fact that we are getting paid for our mercenary work as well. I mean, let's be honest, we were already hunting down these large armies and war bands of beastmen, deserters, bandits, blah 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 blah, and getting paid for their equipment and to sell them off as prisoners and or slaves, so we might as well get paid a little bit extra for doing it for a specific empire, am I right? We were so well known and our army so strong by this point that these deserters were so scared they were willing to just up and join us instead of being killed or taken prisoner, which of course we would never accept. Given our new renown within the realms, I decided that a nice priestess headband might be better than our witch hunter hat. I know it's ironic and satirical, but I feel that this is much better. To help us deal with the fact that there was occasionally a warrant out for us and everybody was trying to stop us from digging up their dead to raise for our army, we actually ended up getting the skill of Two-Faced, giving us a 50% increase in the chance of sneaking into cities under a disguise. On the 7th day of autumn 2503, the realm of Ostermark had fallen. I have no idea who that was, so moving on. We finally would be able to recruit our very first Minotaur soldier into our ranks. Hello, handsome. It is about damn time you finally joined us. I guess you finally got it through your thick mammal, I guess, skull that we were the best option instead of starving to death or being killed by us. And let me tell you, even just having one Minotaur in our army was a huge benefit. I can only imagine if we have, I don't know, a lot. We once again would come across a traveling salesman who, this time around, had a necromancer's staff. I swear it's almost like he knows exactly what we want. Wielding this item was mostly just for boosting my magical abilities, although sometimes I did enjoy bonking our enemies on the head with it just a little bit, you know. Speaking of magic, we decided to head back towards the capital city of this little empire here and speak with the city's mage. Oh my god, I can't tell you how great it was not only to be in the presence of such a magical place, but another magic wielder. The road gets a bit lonely when your only friends to speak to are the undead who can't speak and also a large minotaur. I have no doubt in my mind that this city's mage is a very highly skilled mage and is a highly skilled warrior with a lot of knowledge, but he was also something of a short king, if you know what I'm saying. Nevertheless, he would be able to help us learn a few new minor spells, such as Petty Heal, which is going to, well, heal us when we're injured in battle, and how to fire a magic bolt with nothing but our bare hands, pulling this power straight from the ether. Let's test it out. I think that'll do nicely. And would you look at that, we even have our second Minotaur ready to join us. My, I've never quite felt this powerful. Not only am I developing my magical prowess and abilities to some extraordinary levels in the very near future after we get through the basics, but we are really upgrading our army. This world is our oyster. These realms are our playground. And only the gods know what is in store for us now. See you later.